Welcome, one and all. We've got a very familiar face sat opposite me. Well, virtually opposite me, at least. We're going to get his views on what he saw against Everton, what he thinks he saw against Everton, and what he thinks might be happening in the near future. How are you, mate?
Not too bad, thank you. A bit better after yesterday, although still disappointed with lots of things.
Yes, well, as you can probably guess, we're recording this on Sunday. Smith alluded to yesterday. He is, of course, talking about Saturday. So you're overriding sense of relief for the 3 points.
Oh yeah. I mean, once we scored, I don't think the result was ever in doubt. But Moyes is so set in his ways. I found the substitutions in particular very, very disappointing. And bringing on Soucek when, to me, Everton had no ideas, and I think if we'd just done like for like substitutions, I'm sure we would have got a third goal, maybe even a fourth. Because I think if we had got a third, I think they'd have capitulated.
Yeah, I mean, well, they were terrible. Everton were an awful team. I mean, I had this, and I spent obviously spent Sunday looking through a lot of the comments, and a lot of the people saying, well, Everton were really poor, and I knew that. I was just enjoying the win and trying to take some positives from it. Yes, I mean, I was quite conscious they're probably the two worst teams in the league. There, you don't feel he's learned anything from that, or we're going to see anything different?
Well, we didn't see much different yesterday. Yeah, we played a back three, but his substitutions were just totally uninspiring yet again. Could not understand for the life of me why he brought on Soucek, particularly once you saw the impact that Downs had when Downs came on. He looks so much more effective. I think if he'd come on earlier, again, maybe things would have happened. It gave Rice more license to move forward. I just think it was, Soucek's had his day and needs to be out of here.
Yeah, I was really. It was hard. It was such a late cameo from Downs. It may have been an 80th minute substitution, something like that. But it was
later than that.
Was it? But mobility. Look, he's got a lot going for him. I think he wins the ball early, Flynn Downs. I think his range of passing is really good. I think he's happy to receive the ball in possession and all those things that we know about him. But what is instantly got ahead of Soucek is mobility. I don't mean just outright pace. I just literally mean moving around the football pitch and doing it effectively, turning quickly, that sort of thing. And I do sort of worry. I was thinking about Flynn Downs quite a lot today, being Sunday. And I just wonder, I know Moyes rested an awful lot. And at the moment, let's see, first of all, before I say that, would you agree Moyes is with us for the foreseeable now?
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay. So I was thinking about, bearing in mind that's probably the case, when we get into the knockout stages, which I believe are in either late February or maybe even as late as March for
they are in March.
Are they? Yeah, for the Conference League. I'm not sure David Moyes is going to be rotating anymore in that competition. I think, which is a real shame, and I hope I'm wrong. Don't get me wrong. I want us to win it, but I'm not sure how much we're going to see of Flynn Downs in central midfield, and I think. Even for when, I think he'd be a good partner for Declan. I actually think he'd be a really good partner for Paqueta as well, actually.
I agree. I just think all around it's positive with Downs. The only thing he doesn't seem to have is a goal threat, which Soucek used to have, but no longer seems to have. So, that's the only possible downside. But no pun intended. I would definitely be looking to play Downs a hell of a lot more than he's been played so far. There's no reason not to play him.
No, I thought for quite some time that it would be one of the first things that any new manager would probably do. He'd come in, assess the squad, have a look, I think, right, I'm going to give you a go. And I even think under Moyes, I think if Downs got 3 or 4 games playing in central midfield, I think it'd be really hard to shift from the team. I really do. But anyway, what about the rest of the team? What about the defence? Anybody impress you there, or the defence itself? I know Everton were a little bit blunt, weren't they? But and anything, what pleased you about the performance?
Well, good for a start off. I think he made some last ditch tackles. He seems to read the game well. His passing seems to be excellent, and a couple of times he also showed how quick he is. So he looks to be the ideal central defensive player as far as I'm concerned. I mean, Ogbonna played well, but I don't know what's happened to Calvert-Lewin, but he's a shadow of the player that he was last year. He was hardly a threat at all, and it just seemed that as soon as they got anywhere near our penalty area, they didn't have a clue what to do. And most of the time, I think we snuffed their attacks out relatively easily. As far as I can remember, Fabianski only had one save to make. So it's a bit difficult to judge the defence because I don't think we were up against an awful lot, to be honest. I mean, long term, we are a bit better off than I think you. I think you think we're the second worst team in the Premiership. I don't think we're quite that bad. I'm not saying we're much better than that, but at the moment, Southampton are still pretty poor. Bournemouth are pretty poor. Leicester, with Leicester, it all depends on what Maddison
Yeah,
what Maddison does. He seems to be. They seem to revolve around him like Villa used to revolve around Grealish. When Maddison plays, they score goals and get points, and when he doesn't, they don't. So, with his injury record of probably the last year, Leicester's future, I think, is determined by whether he plays or not. Bournemouth.
Well, Newcastle might be interested in him. Well, they were. I don't know if they still are now. Sorry, what was you going to say?
Well, Bournemouth did seem to improve a little bit in the performance yesterday. The new winger they've bought from France appears to be fairly nippy and posed a threat. But having said that, I'm not sure Notts Forest have got the best defence in the world.
That's all right. They buy some new defenders.
Yeah, well, I think Cooper is overrated. I do think Gibbs White is a sensational footballer up front. And if anything happens to him, I think Forest will really struggle. So there's lots of teams in the mix, and you never know. That often what happens in the second half of the season is one team sort of drops from the middle and sort of sinks. And this year, that could be Palace.
Well, it needs to be three teams to drop from the middle and sink, ideally.
Well, yeah. But Palace, their next 8 or 9 games are all against teams in the top half. They've got a really difficult set of fixtures coming along. And, if they start on a losing run, sometimes it's difficult to dig your way out of it, especially when you're a side who isn't scoring goals. I mean, Haaland is scoring a goal every 62 minutes for Man City. We can't manage a goal every 100 minutes as a whole team. But we're not the only one. I think there's 8 teams who've scored less goals in the Premier League than Haaland has this year, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah, well, it looks like they won't win the league anyway. Yeah, Arsenal show no sign of relenting. I watched the game today, actually, Arsenal and Man U. I mean, the thing I was about Southampton is the midfielder that they got from City, who is very, very good, and another young lad they got from City called Adozie, who is nothing like his name would suggest. Actually, looks very, very lively indeed, and he looks really good. So obviously they got Ward-Prowse there. So I don't know. I do think at some point you are gonna suffer the consequences of constantly year after year selling your best players. I don't really know about that. That one's that's difficult. Yeah, Bournemouth. I think the thing is, are we going to buy anybody else? I just still think, I know I'll keep going on about it, we're really lacking in terms of pace. And I don't mind if he wants to play counter-attacking football. We'll get some players in that are gonna do it. And because I thought in that game, Antonio's not as quick as he used to be, but he looked quite sharp and quite quick. And it helped with a little bit of threat on the counter-attack. But it's still not what I would do. I'd still get sort of, square pegs and square holes there to do that job, really. But Danny Ings is in. You know an awful lot about him because, well, obviously you live near Southampton and got lots of Southamptonish friends, shall we say that? So I mean, do you think I'm struggling to see how David Moyes is going to get him scoring? To be honest with you.
Well, the thing about Ings is Ings makes goals for himself. So, he is one of the old foxes in the box. And I saw a stat somewhere that he's like the fourth top scorer in the Premier League over the last 2 years. Behind Kane, Son, and Salah. I think he comes out at number 4, and that's been playing in a team at Villa who haven't really been pulling up trees. I know we're not pulling up trees at the moment either, but I think he's somebody who doesn't necessarily need the supply from elsewhere in the way that some players like Nketiah, for instance, is an old-fashioned goal scorer. I think does have the ability to. I also think at some point Moyes will swap and have Ings starting, and I think that will actually make Antonio more effective because I think Antonio will be more effective coming on as a sub or playing on the wing. I think he's under less pressure on the wing, and no, I think that would benefit the side all round. Also,
well,
good to see
let's hope
Bowen.
he's brave enough to do something about it. Well, yeah, it was good, wasn't it, to see him coming back into form. So are you? I think we might do something else in this window as well. Then we definitely look. We can't do anything about it now because he's found himself back in the team. I'm talking about Wan-Bissaka here. That being said, he made a mistake for Nketiah to score in that game against Arsenal. But I think there was definitely genuine interest, and but Man United understandably don't want to let him go now. But bearing in mind there was interest in him. I think we're still in for another player or two, but it's a conversation for another day. I mean, I don't know where this money's coming from because it looks like we might still be in for the lad from FC Lorient. So that's the Nigerian strikers. That's going to be really, really interesting as well to see what happens there.
Now, the speedy winger Bournemouth they got him from Lorient as well.
Yes,
and they've sold one of their other forwards. Bizarre.
I think there's a lot of money troubles. I read a couple of days ago that Valencia were bidding for a player, and it was someone in the UK. The name escapes me now. There's just so many stories in this whole list of stuff. And they couldn't come to an agreement. Basically, they couldn't. It was £2.5 million, and they couldn't fund it. And I've heard a lot of this recently, and it's a part of this feeds into why a lot of the European teams are jealous of the Premier League, in particular the broadcasting deal, which obviously they don't have because for so long a lot of these clubs either sold their rights individually or with the example of La Liga, it was stacked so heavily in favour of the big two that there was no money there. And I think the straw that broke the camel's back is probably football behind closed doors, and I think a lot of them are really struggling now. And I understand the French league had a big deal with Canal Plus, a big broadcaster over there, and I don't know exactly what happened, but I think that the deal collapsed, or it certainly yielded far less than the original agreement was. So I think a lot of these French clubs are there. It sounds a bit sounds a bit callous and ruthless, but are there for the taking in that sense. So yeah, wouldn't surprise me at all if we did that. But it'd be interesting to see if Moyes actually did. And what about Antonio? Because Antonio's been linked away with Wolves. Dawson's just signed for Wolves, and if you saw the news, that
Yeah,
won't be any surprise, but he has officially gone now. Would you be? What would you think
well,
about letting Antonio go?
based on his performance against Wolves and sort of most of this season, I would have been happy to see him go. But based on his performance
Yeah.
yesterday, you know, it's just strange, isn't it? It was almost as if was he playing for a move or was he playing not to move? I'm hoping it was the latter.
Remember what you said to me about Tony Cottee years ago, stood on the North
Yeah,
Bank?
yeah.
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 I'm so sorry. It's like a two-way conversation. He said to me, I don't know, I was 10 or something like that, 10 or 11, something like that. And he said to me, he said, Cottee will play well today. He said, because he wants to move to Everton. And he'll be playing for a move. And I think even then, the concept hadn't quite occurred to me that somebody was, I don't even know I'm not even sure I knew you could leave West Ham. And I certainly wasn't sure why anyone would want to. And you remember from the kickoff,
Yeah.
he went on some mazy dribble past and forced Neville Southall into a really, really very, very good,
The
very good
first,
save.
the first of many very good saves from Neville Southall in that game.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. He was quite some goalkeeper, wasn't he? Just something that we both wanted to say actually, because we spoke on the phone earlier on today, obviously, and I did want to say it, and it was more of a private conversation, but I'd like to say it out there publicly as well. Obviously, because I just want to get your thoughts on Frank Lampard in just a second. There was a point afterwards whereby look, Everton are in the doldrums, and I feel sorry for their fans. I feel sorry for a lot of them. But Bill Kenwright, who is their chairman, former owner, but still their chairman, is not a man in good health. Really not. And at the end of it, you could tell. I mean, he looked broken and he looked in really, really bad health. And to see that Sky reporter chasing him down when he was trying to get into his car, trying to get a quote, which he wasn't ever going to get. Bill Kenwright was never going to say, "I'm going to sack Frank Lampard," and to ask what he thought of the game and stuff like that. I mean, I thought it was really, really, really poor form, and I know you felt the same, didn't you?
Yeah, it's gutter journalism. I don't know if the guy thinks that it makes him look big or what, but to me, it made him look really stupid, and his organisation. It's just horrible journalism. Wouldn't want anything to do with it.
No, it was bad. He's an elderly man in poor health. Just seen his team lose under a lot of pressure. So, well, leave him alone. You know, whatever you think. It's not like you're going to get some big headline or something. It's not like that's even going to be at the front of it's going to disappear into a footnote in your hourly broadcasts. There's nothing to. I just thought, have a bit of decency. Leave the bloke alone.
But then Sky didn't show any decency afterwards because they kept showing the excerpt time and time again. It was like, what does it prove? Nothing.
Yeah,
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, just no decency to it at all. Okay, the other thing, I'm surprised Lampard's still in a job, but I think, and here's my little theory, I think Everton were going to appoint Moyes.
No, I think you're right.
So I think they're do you? I just thought about it. I think they're stuck. They were going to appoint Moyes. Moyes gets the win. Moyes is at the moment still in the West Ham job. I think Everton are there thinking, what the hell are we going to do now?
No, I think you're right. I think that's probably what they would have done. I think they think the fans were implicated by it, but a lot of the fans, when Moyes left, and for a long time after Moyes left, felt it was a good thing.
Yeah.
It hasn't turned out to be a good thing, for lots of other reasons. But I think at the moment, Everton are a real good old-fashioned club, have great supporters, but the whole place is a real mess. and if you look at Man United until this year, Man United has been a real mess for a very long time. But of course, they were much further up the pecking chain, and they fell a long way. Everton weren't so far up, and I think there is a massive danger. I can't see them getting out of it unless they make a stunning managerial appointment. And
Yes.
I can't see who would want to go there.
All right, so you think they're down? Give us before we. This won't be the last time you're on before the end of the season, obviously. But go on, guess 2 others then.
I think Wolves will be all right.
Yeah.
A lot depends on what happens in the next few weeks with transfers. As things are at the moment, probably Bournemouth. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Palace.
Oh, let's hope Marcus doesn't watch this. He's gonna be phoning me up. I'd be disappointed. I'll put him on mute. I'll say I'm popping around to see him this week. I can only mute him for so long. Anyway, it's you that said it, not me. But anyway, nonetheless, thank you for joining me, mate. We'll get in. Well, I say we'll get in touch before the end of the season. Clearly, I'll speak to you significantly before then. But thank you for joining everybody else who always ask how you are and where you are, and think you speak a lot of sense for some unknown reason. But there you go. There he is. That's not him. Not him. That's someone different. Him. They speak about the same level of sense. Right. Cheers, mate. I'll catch up with you later. For everybody else, thank you very much for tuning in. We'll be back. He won't be back tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow with some probably talking about pace in the West Ham team.
Au revoir.